And I call to order this meeting of the Lincoln County Planning Commission. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. I got a thumbs up for being recorded. And the order of events tonight will be as follows. For each public hearing, staff will introduce the agenda item and present a summary of the staff report. The applicant will then be asked to explain their proposal in further detail and answer any questions from the Planning Commission members. I will then open the floor to public comment, first for persons in support of the application, and then for persons in opposition of the application. When you step up to the podium, please state your name, your address, and speak clearly into the microphone. Speakers are encouraged to only address new and relevant information pertaining to the item. And above all, please be cordial to all the meeting participants and refrain from side conversations and speaking out of turn, or you will be asked to leave. Lastly, decisions on rezone applications will be scheduled for additional public hearing during upcoming Board of Commissioners meeting. Decisions on conditional use permit applications may be appealed to the County Board of Commissioners by submitting a letter to the County Planning and Zoning Office within 5 days. All right, with all of that said, we will do roll call. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Ensted.
Here.
Commissioner Green. Here. Commissioner Scott.
Here.
Commissioner Jungling's also here. All right, approval of the meeting minutes. Are there any changes for the minutes, Mr. Brown?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that, I ask for a motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes. Scott?
Second, Green.
All right, motion is second. Any discussion? I'll do roll call for approval. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. All right, those are approved. Now we go to approval of the meeting agenda. Any changes on the agenda, Mr. Brown?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you much. Motion and second.
Mr. Chairman, I will move to approve the meeting agenda.
Second, Anstead.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, I'll do roll call. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted.
Yes.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. All right, at this time, I'll ask for public input on anything you'd like to speak that's not on the agenda tonight. So any concerns or anything you'd like to address to the board that is not on the agenda tonight, please feel free to come up and talk to us. All right, seeing none, I'll close the floor. And any old business, Mr. Brown?
None, Mr. Chairman.
All right, public hearings, application number 1.
Thank you. Good evening. This first item is an application to rezone from the C Commercial District to the PD Plan Development District. The applicant and property owner is LG Everest. Location of this property is approximately a little over a mile to the southwest of the city of Harrisburg. As you can see, this property is within the city of T's plating jurisdiction, but they have deferred that to the city of Harrisburg. There is no subdividing of this property taking place with this application, so there is no preliminary subdivision plan associated with it. Subject parcel is approximately 127 acres in size. As you can see, the property is currently zoned C Commercial. That was rezoned to C Commercial over 2 separate phases. There is, as far as the property is unimproved, it's primarily used for agricultural purposes. I should say it's not completely, or there is a house that is on the property, and I believe that's in the process of being removed, as well as some outbuildings that are on the property as are shown here. These were some shots were taken of the property. The first one off to the left, that's showing to the north, that would be on the property looking directly to the north. Purpose of this application, the applicant identified the property. So plan development, they've identified 2 sub-areas for the property. The first sub-area would be primarily to the south of the property, and I'll show those pictures here in a second. But essentially, it would be locations for a wet and dry ready-mix concrete plants. The other sub-area, which would be kind of the majority of the property, which would be to the north along the frontage, that sub-area would be primarily commercial, I'll say some light industrial type uses on there. Most of sub-area A would be undeveloped until city services would be primarily available to that property. Again, those services would be more than likely provided by the city of Harrisburg at some stage in time. The only thing that's been proposed at this time again would be the development of the property directly to the south. That would be where the wet and dry ready-mix concrete plants, as well, I believe, as an asphalt plant would be there as well, and then associated type uses there. So staff did identify in the staff report that this application is proposed in the area that's identified as a future rural commercial area. So this application is consistent with that proposed land use that is there. Staff did work with the applicant and draft a proposed ordinance. The proposed ordinance would identify all of those uses that would be developed potentially in sub-area A and sub-area B. If you recall, early this year, we did rezone property to planned development just across the road to the north. That property is owned by LG Everest as well. Just before that ordinance became effective, LG Everest purchased the subject property to the south, identified that this would be a better location for their proposed expansion and future uses. And so, again, staff identified these different types of uses. Most of these are pretty similar to what was approved to the north that is there. Some other issues that arose is that did contact the township. The applicant did work with the township, and I believe they've formalized, the last I'd heard, an agreement with the township for road maintenance and access onto the township road, and that would be La Valley Township Road. This would be this section of the township road right here. This would be the primary access for the initial development, would go up the township road and then access onto the County Highway 110 to the north. So again, staff did review the application and found that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning regulations. And so staff does recommend the ordinance. But if you have any additional comments or questions with that ordinance or through the public hearing process, we could certainly revisit that at that time. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Brown, is there any access to this land off the county highway?
Yes, there would be the existing, what I'll call probably the home access or the,
Okay.
yeah.
So is the majority of the access gonna come off the township road then?
I believe for that first sub area, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that they have an agreement with La Valley Township. Do you know more details on that, or is that a for sure deal?
Yeah, I defer that to the applicant, but I have seen the agreement.
Okay.
All right, commissioners, any additional questions?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just apologies, there's just got a little plumbing issue on the other side dealing with, so, for Mike Tardias.
All right. With that, I will ask the applicant or the representative to come forward and talk about their application.
Thank you. Guard Rops with Stockwell Engineers, 801 North Phillips Avenue, Suite 100, in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 57104. As Toby had mentioned, we were here a couple months ago or so going over, looking at doing a PUD on their LG's existing site at the Ace Ready Mix plant just north of 273rd. At the corner of I-29 and 273rd, they purchased the north two properties adjacent to that property, which total about 13 and a half acres or so. As part of that, there were some kind of restrictions that they had to that site, and in conjunction with the DOT doing their systems interchange at 273rd, cutting off the Ironworks street connection there, shifting that over to Kenworth. With that, they saw some issues with turning radiuses and that kind of thing, queuing and stacking. So decided to, as part of that process, when we were originally here, we did an open house to the, for the adjacent properties to the east there, the development, really essentially the commercial and industrial development there. As part of that open house, it was found out that the property to the south was available for purchase, and based on the issues that they had with the existing site and potential expanding in there, decided it was in the best interest of LG to purchase that property and then expand operations into that site. So I guess what Toby explained it pretty good. There's going to be two separate. Is that up here, Toby, at all, or? Okay. With those sub areas A and B, we're going to be concentrating on sub area B, which is in the blue. That area. There we go. Perfect. As mentioned, sub-area A will be future development, mainly commercial industrial use here in the future, once we get some utilities extended out here to service that. But the overall, you can kind of see in here the entire site with what's hatched in gray down at the bottom here. This is a schematic site plan currently right now for the new concrete and asphalt plant sites. And they will have two access points onto 471st Street. The one being right here at Fairfield Place right now is a current existing intersection. And then down to the south, there'd be an exit into the site. That was shifted all the way further south to that quarter section line, which eventually in the future, there will be a street extending out to the east. Currently, right now, there's an existing driveway that you can see right here. But in the future, that should be, with future expansion to the east there, will be a street going along that quarter section line. So try to line up the two approaches as best we can with the existing intersections and the future intersection, I guess, on 471st Street. The concrete plant is going to be located right here. That is something that they'll be concentrating on constructing immediately here in the near future. That will be a completely enclosed wet and dry batch plant. That will be located right here with the conveyor that connects to the hoppers down here. The hoppers also will be completely enclosed. In the red, you can see the aggregate bins. That's the aggregate bins that will be used to feed the hoppers to the concrete plant. All of the surfacing around that, you can see in this light gray, is denoted as concrete pavement. So that'll be all hard surfaced around that concrete plant, with the concrete washout area just located to the west of that. That's where all the concrete trucks will come in and wash out at the end of the day. As part of this plan in the future, right after following the construction of this concrete plant, concentration will be going on to the office shop building right here, which is kind of centrally located in between the two exits, but on the east end of the site. That will house offices, dispatch, maintenance, and the testing laboratory for operations out here. The parking for staff and employees is located right adjacent to that. That will be asphalt surfacing. Parking for the trucks for the concrete and asphalt plants will be on the far east side right here. That will also be asphalt surfacing. Everything else will end up being concrete surfacing. It does show some asphalt right here, but that will end up being concrete as well. That's been modified since this plan was put together. Following the office construction, they'll then move forward with the asphalt plant, which is kind of located right here. The layout of that generally is right here, with the aggregate bins, again, hatched in red, right adjacent to that to help feed the plant. There'll be a raised road along the back side of those aggregate bins where supply trucks, aggregate delivery trucks will come in, dump on that road, and then loaders will push that off into the bin, into the each individual bin, depending on the aggregate that's coming in. To the very far west end, right over here, you can kind of see this hatched area. That will be gravel. At this point, there will be a crusher for recycled concrete and recycled asphalt in this location. Recycled asphalt will be utilized to feed the asphalt plant with the 20% wrap in their new mix. Obviously, the crushed recycled concrete will be utilized in any aggregate base used on any infrastructure project around this area. So that's something that's not going to be crushed on a daily basis. That's just on an as-needed basis. When material becomes available, those will be utilized. Down to the south here, you can see kind of in the blue area that we have a number of, it's labeled as detention ponds, but those will be retention ponds. Pretty much all of the storm sewer on site will be internally collected and held on site, and then that water utilized through well house and pumps to pump this gray water throughout the site and used for various reasons. One is to feed the concrete plant, to wash down any areas that they need to wash down, dust control, washing down any aggregate piles and so forth. So they'll be utilizing as much of the existing stormwater as they can on site to feed this plant, well, both plants and pretty much the entire operations on this property here. There will be berms, landscaped berms along the west side along I-29, along the north side on the future development to the north, and along the east side along 471st, similar to what they have out there now. Looking at 6 to 10 feet tall berms that'll be landscaped to kind of help shield the plant itself from the public. I'll just go up here to the utilities for the site. Like I said, they're gonna be utilizing as much of the stormwater on site as they can. However, Lincoln Rural Water has an existing line adjacent to 741st Street there that they'll tap off, provide a meter, and then that will come in and feed the office building and the asphalt plant. But the larger line will end up feeding the concrete plant that will supplement the well water to that plant when the well water isn't or can't keep up. Sanitary sewer for the concrete plant, for the asphalt plant, and the office building will be collected. We'll go through a septic tank and then obviously pumped out there from every so often when it needs to. That will then gravity feed after that's been siphoned down through a lift station and then pumped through to a pressurized leach field that will be located down in this green space area down here. So that'll be kind of a mound system, will be pressurized to discharge any of the water off of the septic tank. So everything will be septic. There'll be a holding tank for everything out here on site. And as far as sanitary sewer is concerned, there will be a stub out right here that stubs out towards 471st Street. So in the future, when that sanitary sewer comes online out there, they can connect directly to that, and then the lift station and the leach field just taken offline at that time. Storm sewer is running throughout the site just to kind of facilitate drainage throughout the site. It's a very flat area. We're raising the site up to help with that drainage. That storm sewer will also extend through to the north and through that north berm to help facilitate drainage just to the north here when that further gets developed. Also, whatever drainage stormwater that comes through there will also again be contained on site in through these kind of 3 or 4 ponds that we're gonna have interconnected down site. Ultimately, there'll be one pond down here in the bottom left corner. That's where we'll be drawing from for the stormwater to service the facility with the raw water. There is off that exit, there is a scale down here at that exit location that will be utilized obviously for scaling going out of the plant as well. There'll be interior lighting, just for security purposes overnight. Obviously during the evenings when that security lighting's on, that will be shielded as needed to limit the amount of light pollution obviously onto adjacent landowners to the east and the interstate to the west. Here you can kind of see the existing drainage of the entire quarter section that was purchased. Basin D is located down here in the left, F in the center, G and F located down here in the south half. So all of these basins, D, E, F, and G, will be self-contained. Currently, they discharge down mainly through the bottom drainage swale that comes around down to the south portion of the site. There is another discharge point crossing 471st Street where Basin F comes into and drains out. That will be all included inside the berms. All that drainage will be collected and discharge into the existing retention ponds on site. There will be a little bit on the outside of the ponds or outside of the berms that will still drain off, but it'll just be grass area currently like it is today. So I know that drainage is definitely an issue down in this area, so we're doing our best to help that situation, but then utilize it as best we can too. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So I guess that's kind of an overview of everything that they're planning on there. If you have any questions with that.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Commissioners, do you have questions for the applicant?
I got a couple. When you talked about the crushing of the concrete, are they gonna have a crusher on site? Or are they gonna have a contractor come in and do that? So I just know it was brought up last time was concerns with the citizens with them grinding it and the silica and all that stuff. And, you know, it being with close proximity to the interstate is, I don't know, try the wind's blowing, it could blow that onto the road and cause visibility problems. So that's just kind of been a concern of mine.
Yeah, that was one of the issues with the other site was we had that in there as part of one of the uses for that PUD. However, the site wasn't really conducive to have a crusher on. They just didn't have the room to do that. This one, I believe Lance will have full-time crushers out available on site as needed or not. They'll be brought in as needed. And he can talk a little bit more about those.
Good evening. My name is Lance Pullman. My address is 350 South Main in Sioux Falls. As far as the crushing goes, it'll be done internally. We have our own crushers, and they are plumbed for water, dust mitigation. The other thing with crushing is it's not, as Gard had said, it's not a routine or a continuous operation. So as needed, a couple times a year, we would be doing crushing. And it would be internal, so.
And maybe my next question would be is, due to the proximity to the airport and with the height of the silos and the plants and that kind of stuff, how does that impact or have any impact on the airport? Have you guys looked into that?
Yes, we went through the FAA. The tallest part of this building will be the concrete plant itself, similar to the one that's out there right now. And that's gone through the FAA review and approved as far as the location of where that is on site. So we should be good.
And then going back to the county, do they realize, on that 271st there, of how many trucks are gonna be coming and going out of there every day? Cause you got your trucks coming, your aggregate trucks, your powder trucks, all those coming and going out of there, so it's gonna beat that road up pretty good.
Yes, that was part of the road agreement that LG has now signed with the LaValley Township. LaValley will be doing their regular maintenance that they typically do on their roads, grading, dust control, whatever that they typically do throughout the year. But LG will be going above and beyond that anytime to fix any areas, obviously, that gets damaged throughout that and replace those and reconstruct those areas so that obviously that road needs to be in good condition for them to maintain operations. So they're gonna keep it up as best they can.
And to address your traffic question, part of our road use agreement with the township was that we agreed to do a traffic study. So our intentions are to do a traffic study pre any development in this area. So basically now, we're working on that. And then we will do another traffic study as a follow-up to see what the impacts are, what improvements. As you know, the whole corridor is looking through this, with the interchange development, all the traffic from the north, our traffic. There's some decisions that need to be made, and hence, we worked it out with the township, to be proactive. Let's see how this is gonna be affected and what kind of measures we can take, so.
And I just know from living in that area and driving that overpass, that overpass can be challenging at times when you got vehicles passing, each direction. So, with that added truck traffic going on there, that might make that a little bit more dangerous.
Well, and as far as added truck traffic, the truck traffic, the majority of it's there already with our existing facility. The only difference is this will just push further. Will there be additional trucks? Yes, there is gonna be an increase, but, the same aggregate trucks, the same concrete trucks are currently running now, so. I agree, it's a complicated corridor and we wanna be proactive and work with everybody on it.
I think there's some site distances issues with that overpass as well, that they'll
Yeah.
rectify when that project obviously goes here in 27, 28, whenever that's planned to happen.
So you mentioned the agreement you have with La Valley Township. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit on what that looks like?
Well, it turned out to be quite a few pages. So basically what we did is kind of did a conditional survey, see what the existing conditions of the roads are. And then we had several meetings with, most of the township to kind of hash things out. Here's what we want. So, and then here's what they wanted. So as far as basically some of the agreements, and I won't belabor it, and more or less that the user, us, LG Ever, shall use the roadway in existing condition, and improvements are, prior to construction will help with maintenance, but that was one of them. And then that will abate, control, and mitigate any damage generated as a result of the use of the roadway. The user shall be responsible for roadway damages and excess maintenance resulting from such use. And then there were some examples of typical road damage as far as rutting and that kind of stuff. We've agreed to do appropriate dust mitigation as warranted. And then the agreement applies not only to our trucks and traffic, but all our contractors, service vehicles, vendors. If one of them ruts up the road, we'll take care of it that way. And then we also have a provision for any future development in the area when that deems necessary, as far as other utilities, sewer, public utilities coming in, that warrants kind of a reassessment at that time. And then as far as, basically, we both agreed to more or less meet regularly, if you will, at least annually, if not more often, and to discuss and work together. I mean, we don't expect to just come in blindly and use the road without helping. And as I mentioned, the traffic study, we'll do initial to create a baseline, and then we agree to conduct further traffic studies as activities increase, as our activities increase. Basically, I guess we did kind of put a time limit of 5 years on this. We don't really know what the future holds. So in short, we more or less have agreed to maintain that half-mile corridor to make it short and sweet. In fact, this week, we have agreed to, the township is doing a road stabilization project in the area, and we agreed to pay for that half mile to the tune of about $14,000. It benefits them, but it also benefits us. So in my viewpoint, that's a good faith effort to show that we're gonna stand behind our word.
Yeah, that's a good thing. The road stabilization thing, I'm aware of that, and that's good that you guys are doing that on that stretch of road. And it's also my understanding they have a driveway permitting process, which I assume that you guys have filled that out and have been approved on these two driveways anyhow through the township. It's probably part of your agreement.
I guess I'm not aware of that, and they never said anything, but we'll certainly work that out.
But you got all three supervisors signed off on this road maintenance agreement?
Darren, Doug, and Galen all
Okay.
signed off.
Perfect.
All right,
have, Mr. Chairman.
other questions for the applicant, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Robson, I apologize to everybody if this was discussed prior to my arrival. We see where the base plant and on that activities will be. As far as the remaining acres, what is the plan for that?
To the north,
Yeah, to the north and I believe to the west.
to north and west, right? Sub
Because you're
area.
requesting for the whole parcel. to
Yeah,
get-
so the whole parcel will be a PUD.
Yep,
And then the two sub areas broken out with the different items in the PUD, the uses of the PUD. Sub area A will basically list everything in commercial and industrial that's already approved on in the county.
do you have a plan? I understand what is allowed in the plan development. Do you have anything in development at this point that clarifies to us, this board, as to what you're hoping to do in there?
Not at this time. No, not at this time.
Okay.
We have a plan that kind of was, that we have discussed internally on what they plan on doing, but nothing is set in stone. They have no idea how this is gonna actually develop in here in the future. So,
Plan developments are a wonderful tool, I think, when it's clear as to how the property is gonna get used.
Exactly.
Exactly what you're planning for the cement plant and the asphalt plant. Great use where it gets you in and allows you to operate within those acres. I get a little concerned about those acres that we aren't clear as to what's gonna happen.
Yep.
So would there be any consideration to subdivide out those for the plan development at all if there wasn't a support for it by chance? Just because of it takes it out of the control of this planning and our staff. It's kind of the list of approval items gets very large in the plan development. So when it is gone over to that, normally there would be a kind of an initial idea of what's gonna be used in that area. But there's nothing at this point, so.
Yeah, I think that's something we could certainly talk about and discuss if that's
And I'm
something
not
that would need
proposing,
to
I'm just
happen.
curious, given that I don't see in front of us or have heard any
Sure.
correspondence on that, so.
And yeah, we have an idea of kind of what that, obviously by laying this out, we had to come up with some sort of forward-thinking plan to that, so, yeah, we could definitely.
But
look
at this
something
time,
there
there's
for that.
nothing, okay.
Yep.
All right, other commissioners have questions for the applicant? My one question, kind of two, but I see there's wetlands on your original, now they're going retention ponds. Is that where the wetlands get mitigated through the process and turn into retention ponds?
We're doing everything we can as far as grading, this site right here to minimize the impacts to the wetlands that are down there. So this large area down here in this corner, we're staying out of completely. This area down in here, we're trying to avoid as much as we possibly can. We are catching these little fingers that come up in through there, and this has changed a little bit since this was initially developed. This was kind of the initial take on it back in the fall. But since the spring, they've gone out and done a more thorough investigation on that, and these fingers are kind of like this over here. This one's completely gone, and I think this one up here is gone, and these have shrunk a little bit. But we're trying to avoid those as much as possible with the grading to not have to mitigate as many of them as we possibly can. The areas that we will get into an impact, the plan is to bank those wetland credits on that. So the ponds out there will be in conjunction with the wetlands. So the wetlands will stay and the ponds will be there as well.
And then, I know you're talking about connecting to the future of Harrisburg with septic and sewer and all that. Have you had those conversations with Harrisburg?
They want to get sewer out here as soon as they possibly can, yes. That's still down the road, obviously, a ways yet, but they're definitely looking forward to the interchange getting redone, and then ultimately in the future here, getting utility and water out here as well. There's sewer and water out here as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Ms. Rops, can you put on the record as to whether or not the property is willing and has agreed to, once the municipality has gotten to the property, they'll allow annexation of the property?
Sure.
All right, commissioners, any additional questions? Seeing none. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, I'll ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward and speak. All right, anybody in opposition of the application? Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public input, and then I'll ask for a motion so we can discuss further as a commission.
I'll offer a motion to approve the rezone.
And second instead.
All right, motion and second. Discussion.
My concerns, I think, will be alleviated, given the municipality has, by statements made that they're planning on going out to that property to provide water and sewer. My concerns are the areas that are not identified. I think by the time that develops, municipality would be out there, so I'd favor that for this rezone for those reasons. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, yeah, my thing I have to say, my concern is just, it is a large area to be rezoned all at once. But also I know the reputation of the company and all that, and I know they're a good business partner, they're a good neighbor. That's what I've had from my past experience, so I'll be voting in favor. Any other discussion?
I just have a question, Mr. Chairman. What, the purpose for making it a planned development, is the concrete and asphalt plant not able to operate in the way it's zoned currently?
I would ask Mr. Brown for that, but I don't believe so.
Correct.
Commercial.
That would be a I-2 type of a use. And so again, this would be a mix of uses with the commercial and that.
Got it.
So it's best at a planned development district.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? If not, I will do roll call. All right. And this is to approve the rezone. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. All right, congratulations. Item number 2.
The second item is an application to rezone some property from the C Commercial District to the I-1 Light Industrial District. The applicant and property owner is Avery Zahn. As you can see, this property is located just off of US Highway 18. This would be on the west, I'll say the southwest quadrant of Interstate 29. Subject property is currently Zone C Commercial. Parcel size is approximately 4.69 acres in size. The property is currently developed with various miscellaneous buildings, is the best I'd call them, warehouse-type structures. There has been uses permitted through conditional use permits over the years for primarily vehicle sales, motor vehicle repairs, and those different types of things. So the applicant has submitted an application to change the zone of this parcel from the C Commercial District to the I-1 Light Industrial District. The I-1 Light Industrial District primarily because the applicant's proposing to do light manufacturing. A concept plan was not submitted with the application as far as a drawing, but staff has had communication with the applicant and his representatives and identified that really what he's proposing, and he'll go into further detail with it, but essentially it's a recycling type operation where they'll take recyclables and convert those to what I'll call end user type products. I'm going to let him go into more detail what that is. In the staff report, staff did identify that this property is identified as a rural commercial industrial area. And so this application is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, any questions for staff?
One, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
What he's proposing then, once it is rezoned, is that a permitted use or still requires a conditional use permit?
It will require a conditional use permit.
Thank you for the record.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, at this time, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and speak about their application.
Avery Zahn, 28054 472nd Avenue, Worthing, South Dakota.
All right,
And-
yeah, can you tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
your
so I brought
reason
some
for the
samples
rezone?
with you guys. It's kind of odd. You don't know if the best way is just to show you what we actually do. We take literally trash and plastic and we convert it into end user products like Toby said. The samples you see in front of you is a 4-inch post that we use for agricultural use. So it replaced your typical wood green tree post. So we'll do like agricultural fence posts, we'll do picnic tables, park benches, speed bumps, air conditioner pads, bumper stops, anything that we can use, that we can mold into end lifetime product or a forever lifetime product with plastic is we're willing to try. We've been doing R&D on this project for the last 3 years. The last year, we've been pretty serious on coming up with our formulations and figuring out our formulations on the product, and now we're ready to hit production. So now, this is our first time we've made a public announcement on it, and been working with Toby on it. So we still have some proprietary rights in how we do it and our formulations and stuff like that, but we're willing to answer any questions thus far so we can proceed forth with the process of the rezone.
Thank you. That's exciting. Commissioners, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, so Avery, currently you guys aren't in production
No,
anywhere else? Okay.
no, currently right now, this technology is being utilized in Canada and New Zealand. There's nothing in the United States like this technology. So we're bringing the technology over from New Zealand and the United States, is what we're doing. So there's a lot of proprietary rights. We've been doing a lot of R&D out of the existing facility, but we're not in production right now. But we can be in a matter, like I was discussing with Toby, within a matter of a month or two, we'll be in full production, so.
So where do you get your materials from?
Right now, we're working with the city of Omaha
Okay.
because we didn't want it too local, because we didn't want to know, or let people know what was really going on in the area. We've been dealing with the city of Omaha. We have some NDAs with the city of Sioux Falls. We're dealing with the city of Sioux Falls, city of Rapid City, Fargo, Bismarck. And we're reaching out to the larger municipalities, especially the city of Sioux Falls because it's so local, that we're working with relationships with them to acquire the raw material either out of the landfill or at their recycling facilities.
So is this building big enough to hold the?
No.
So how are you gonna, when you get this material delivered before you can make it into your final project, how's that gonna be stored?
Yeah, so our next proposal that we'll have is we'll do a building permit, which I think we applied for a building permit with Toby already. Well, we want everything stored indoors. So to the east of the existing structure, the large structure, we want to propose to have a larger building to acquire the material. Right now, currently, we're taking the material at the city, at their landfills and stuff like that, and it's being mobily shredded down to where we can do our R&D inside the existing facility. So to answer your question, if we were to do a recycling location, that's our ultimate goal, is to have a location here at this facility. So the locals, farmers could bring their chem jugs to our facility. Any type of plastic could be brought to this facility and we could grind it on site at the facility and use it in our shop, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like us to try to just focus on the rezone at this point versus kind of
Sure.
go through the conditional use permit
Sure.
process that he'll have to go through later. Just the one use though you're looking for this property.
Correct, yep.
And I- Go ahead.
Do you anticipate this property to be large enough for when you are into production?
No, this will just be our hometown. I'm a hometown Worthing guy, and I've owned this property. And we just want this to be our home base. We plan on scaling out from here, whether it's in Sioux Falls, whether it's, someplace in the county or in different cities or in different areas or different states. But this will just be our home area right now.
And then with the rezone, with the additional manufacturing, you'll have additional resources you'll need as far as sewer, power and all that. Have you?
Sure, we've already done the one call with DNR. So we've spoken with everyone at the DNR that we need to speak with as far as the water, the wastewater, the air quality. All of that has been handled with the DNR. So we've already
Okay.
done through that process.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, any additional questions? All right, thank you much.
All right, thank you.
All right, this time I'll ask anybody in favor of the application come forward and speak. All right, anybody in opposition of the application, come forward and speak. Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public input and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, also move to accept the rezone. Feel that it fits in the comprehensive plan, and that's exactly where we want these types of zones, and so that's why I'll be in favor of it.
All right, motion and a second. Additional conversation? No, I'm in favor of any sustainability stuff, especially in our county and at home, so. All right, we'll do roll call. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Instead,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're looking at application number 3.
Okay, this third item is an application for a conditional usement to allow fireworks sales temporarily. The applicant and property owner is Kevin Wheeler. Location is approximately half a mile south, it'd be half a mile southwest of the city of T, or southeast, sorry. Subject property is zoned A1 agricultural. This is the Tower Estates subdivision. We've been familiar with this area. We've had a number of applications in this area for rezones to commercial. Again, subject property is zoned A1 agricultural. There is commercial property to the north. There is our rural residential property to the far west and east sides. And again, those properties were rezoned to allow single-family dwellings on them because those properties did not have the ability to build single-family dwellings on them. Property is improved with a single-family dwelling and an outbuilding on the property. The property is primarily accessed along an unimproved road, which is Terry Lane, which is just directly to the south. This property also does have an access point to the county highway that is just directly adjacent to the north side of it, as you can see in the picture here. These are some screenshots of the picture there. This was the site plan that was submitted with the application. In discussions with the applicant, he intends to conduct the fireworks sales in the outbuilding that is on the property. It'd be fully enclosed type of facility. Staff did review this application in the staff report. We did identify that, again, this use is a conditional use in the A1 agricultural district. Again, the use does not have any standards associated with it within the Lincoln County regulations or the zoning ordinance. This use is primarily regulated through the state of South Dakota. State of South Dakota does have some inspection requirements as well as some operational requirements that the applicant and licensing and those different types of things that the applicant will have to conform with. We do have concerns, though, again, that use of nature of fireworks is dangerous in itself to nearby, or does carry some risk to nearby properties. The comprehensive plan identifies this area as a future urban expansion area. Again, the county has received applications to rezone adjacent property to commercial. Those applications, as you recall, were denied primarily because of what I'll call the residential aspects of this area. But staff does feel that the application, again, is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, and if approved, does recommend the 7 conditions that are included in the staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, questions for staff?
So I do, so when you say temporary, is this, I understand the 9 days per calendar year, but is this for as long as they own the property for 9 days per calendar year, they can sell fireworks?
Correct. So temporarily, not long-term, but temporary on a yearly basis, correct. I know I've had discussions with the applicant. As you recall, the state law did change. It seems like yesterday, but it could have been years ago. But they do allow additional sales in the state of South Dakota, more than just 9 days for local sales. But our zoning ordinance is restrictive in the agricultural district. If an applicant did want to conduct sales greater than the 9 days, they would have to rezone to a commercial district to do that. That's just allowable in the agricultural district.
Toby, is there anything in the ordinance that says how far that needs to be away from any residential dwellings?
Not in the county ordinance, no.
Anything in the state law or anything that? Okay.
Yeah, I'll defer to the applicant on the state statute stuff, but yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll ask the applicant to come forward and speak.
All right, Kevin Wheeler, 47022 Terry Lane, T, South Dakota. As Toby mentioned, I'm trying to apply for, I guess, the key takeaway is a temporary, it's a 9-day. The state allows, which I did bring the license just to show you, the state's actually given it to me the last like 4 years. This started as a terrible hobby and is now turning into more of something I guess I want to see if it turns into a legitimate business. I guess the plan would be to expand it and move to, you know, a permanent commercial location. But right now, just to learn the ins and out of the market, I mean, I have the shop, I use it for cars and playing on toys like that. But this is just kind of fitting in with some of the other seasonal businesses. There used to be a barn on South Cliff that sold fireworks, the same thing, 9 days out of the year. The state allows you to sell them June 27th through July 5th. You can apply for a wholesaler license and sell outside those periods. I have no intention of doing that. I've talked to the neighbors. Basically, I've started putting on an annual fireworks display and they all love it and it's kind of become a thing. So this is just kind of fitting with that. I've also started the application process with the ATF to purchase larger fireworks for more professional displays, but that will not be at this location. The fireworks at this location are 1.4 G consumer fireworks. So as far as storage and things like that, they don't really consider them as much of a hazard because they don't have too much dangerous black powder in them, I guess. As far as the state, there's no discharging fireworks within 300 feet, no smoking within 50. I have to have signs displaying that, fire extinguisher, things like that. The state fire marshal can make random inspections, and then I keep a log of all the goods I've purchased from wholesale just to prove that they're all 1.4 consumer fireworks, so there's no illegal items, I guess, like that. But yeah, the plan is just to do a seasonal fireworks stand, something the wife and kids and I can kind of do, a little extra income and support, I guess, a bad habit. I saw the quick math this year is they're expecting $2.3 billion with a B in fireworks sales. There was just shy of $2 billion last year in the US, so pretty crazy what we burn. So.
Yeah, I agree.
But it is neat. I guess people have other vices. I blow stuff up, so.
Commissioners, additional questions for the applicant?
I've heard of a lot of requests and habits that get into growing into things. Some of the concerns that I have is the length of period of time that this would stay with the property.
Sure.
It's not a temporary as in length of years of time. It's a temporary only in days of the year.
Yep.
And we hope that it grows very well, very quickly for you. What is your plan as far as operation if it does go well, which I think it will, because people do like to shoot things off, especially in this state.
Yep.
And take them to other states and take them to one of the issues that I do have, and I wish the state would address it, is users that purchase fireworks, take them out to a country road and then leave the discharge. I'm not a fan of that.
Right.
I've dealt with it all my life. I'm point blank, everyone on the record, tired of it.
Yep.
I love it when people do it at their own home. I commend the municipality of T. They allow their residents to shoot there. Sioux Falls does not. Sioux Falls has 200 and some thousand people in it. They come out into our country in Lincoln County and shoot them.
Yep.
And I can show you pictures over the years of piles and piles and piles of them. Okay, that's my little rant on that. It has nothing to do with your application. What does have to do with your application? Parking. How will you be handling that? There's no hard surfacing road. There's no hard surface on your lot.
Correct. I have just the large gravel driveway and road off the highway there. I intend to use that for parking. I don't foresee me getting the hundreds of customers. This is kind of a word of mouth, friends and family type deal. Obviously, I'm hoping for more retail sales. That's what everybody's shooting for. I guess, like I said, this is a feeler thing. I'm totally willing and listening to the neighbors on this. Obviously, I don't want people driving through yards, tearing things up that way, and becoming a nuisance. I've reached out to all the neighbors. They were all excited about it and willing for it. And I don't think, as mentioned, Toby didn't get any complaints, I guess. And as he stated too, we're pretty tight knit out there. So if somebody didn't like it, I'm for sure they would have mentioned it or got a hold of me. I've only heard positive comments from the neighbors at this point. But like I said, I'm planning to park people in front of my shop there in my driveway and move them in and out as quick as I can, I guess. It's
The one
And
thing I would say that I would add a condition that this has a sunset. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's 1 year or 5 years or 2 years.
okay.
But there, in my mind, there should be a sunset on this.
Yep.
Just because of the uncertainty of
And I would agree with
existing
that.
neighbors. Very good.
I'm fine with that. And then I also mentioned the neighbors. I know a lot of the stores are open till like midnight or something. I'm anticipating 9 or 10 o'clock because, as I said, right now I have young children as well, and I'm not going to be out there till midnight. So
Yeah, is it, Toby, or you can maybe answer, which parcel is it that is a rural residential property in that on Tower Estate? There's
two
two lots.
west and two lots to the east.
So we have quite a mix of uses in that area.
Yep, there is. It's a cluster. So
Very good. Those are my biggest concern. You address the time, and then you address the being able to park. But I could
Yeah.
show some support after testimony, maybe of if there was a sunset. Otherwise, I get real concerned about allowing something that.
no, like
would
I
not
said,
have
if
a
this is
sunset.
something that explodes and I'm seeing even 25 or 50 cars at a time,
Explodes, that's, I
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
yeah. Yep. Thanks, Mike.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
And if approved, would you be exercising this in 7 days?
Exactly, yeah. We hope, I mean, I already have my pallets of fireworks here, but there's more coming to sell, I guess, so. And then July 1st, Friday evening, everyone's welcome, so.
But just to clarify, you'd be okay with an added condition that,
Yeah, we could
that-
put a
that this was
limit,
just-
like, 5 or 10 years, if that's acceptable to the commission.
or like one and we
One.
come back.
Thinking
we
two.
do one or
Two.
two.
And we
Okay.
can
Yep.
revisit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that'd be, not that we would
No, that's fine.
reapprove it, but
Yep.
I have some of the same concerns Commissioner Poppins does is,
Sure.
it's your driveway, your everything is
Correct.
meant for residential.
Yep.
And what happens if 100 cars just start pulling off and you don't have room to put them in your place and they're parked out on the road and
Correct.
this and that? And I think those are things that, I'm not against what you're doing. And I totally get that you want to dip your feet in the water first and see if it works before you go to some commercial type property. But I think it would be good as protection for you as well. Maybe, I could support it if we grant it for this year, see how it goes, and then if it works good and you want to come back next year and apply for it again, I think that would be okay. I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking.
All right, thank you very
All
much.
right, perfect.
All right, this time I'll ask anybody in favor of the application to come forward.
Terry Mark, I'm at 47014 Terry Lane, just down the street a little bit. My wife and I are in favor of this, of course, it's our son-in-law. But we're very confident that Kevin will do this the right way and will follow all the state and whatever guidelines he needs for safety and fireworks regulations and stuff. And he does have a nice approach there coming in off the highway. And he's got room to park quite a few cars there if he moves some of his cars. But anyway, we're in favor of you granting this. We see a young family trying to make a a few extra bucks, and Lord knows we could all use a few extra bucks at this time. So I urge you to approve this permit. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else in favor of the application? Seeing none, anybody in opposition of the application? Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public input, and I'll ask for motion from the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to clarify something, unfortunately. The driveway that or the access to the road, is that an approved approach? Let's get that on the record if that is or isn't.
Yes, on the record, approximately 10 or 12 years ago, somewhere around 2009, 2011, somewhere in there, I went through the highway department here because it was off a state highway, so it was through the highway department, not the township. And I did get it approved. I also oversized and put in a concrete 24-inch culvert, which was above and beyond. And so, yes, I did have that approach approved several years ago.
And that's coming off of the approach.
That is off of the highway, Highway 110, yep.
And can you pull up a map
Is
for
that,
that?
was
Because
that
there's
up
also
here yet?
Terry
Toby?
Lane, which.
Terry Lane.
Terry Lane, yep.
Right.
Yep. And then that one, it's a private road. And then, yeah, I'm actually the guy who seems to just take care of Terry Lane. I plow it and bring in gravel and grade it as well, so.
But has there been an agreement at coming off of?
I don't know that there's like an agreement. It's a private road, so I guess I'm not sure. It's just like our driveways to our houses and everything there.
But the development or the tower estates,
Yep. There is no, it's unfortunate, everything in that area has been dissolved. There's no road association. There's no nothing anymore out there. So as mentioned, I pay for a private grader to come down it myself. I also plow the whole road in the winter.
So do you anticipate the bulk of your traffic coming off of?
I anticipate
the oil, or will it be,
Yes, off of the oil.
I assume you'll have signs out
The
there?
plan is I would put a temporary sign, yes, in the ditch, and then, yeah, during the sales period, and then have those removed. No permanent signage, just during the sales period, so, but, yeah, I guess.
do you have to carry liability of any type of insurance?
Correct, yep, liability insurance on the building. There's a lot of gray area on the.
Speed limit there is 55, correct?
Yeah, it switches to 55, just kind of right back here. It's like 35 over the bridge and then switches to 55 somewhere just right back here, yep, so.
I mean,
Which I know there was some discussion a few years ago, decreasing that further down even just because of the traffic. Because we have a lot of truck traffic on this road right now that turns Vierhe, the double H paving over there gets quite a few trucks every day. So there is a pretty busy highway right now, so.
All right, thank you. So right now, we're at the point, looking for a motion with the amendments to the motion that you would like.
Did we ask if there was opposition? Excuse me. Okay, I'm sorry.
What was that?
Did we ask if there was opposition to it?
Yeah, I believe it was all sent out. There was no opposition, but Toby, can you clarify that?
Tonight, no, and we've received no calls regarding this application.
So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve it with the amendments as listed, plus adding the amendment of needing to come back to have this reapproved in 3 years.
3 years.
I think 1 year, I feel like there's, like this has been an ongoing, like there's been things going on there. Coming back every year or requesting, as a tax, my preference is 3 years, I guess. So.
Okay, we have a motion with 3-year sunset on the temporary application.
Second, Johnson.
All right, discussion or additional motions?
County's a unique county. And we have to watch out for protection for all that are there now and those that are coming in the future. We're all support individuals trying to make the best of that opportunity that they may or may not have in front of them. And again, I'm willing to give him a year or maybe two. 1 year may be too short, because if he sees something that needs to be addressed, shutting him off before he had a chance to even try to rectify it would be too short. 3 years already is, to me, as fast as this area grows, is a stretch for me. Because people buy and sell homes month by month, and we have no idea who his neighbor will be in 30 days. And this is kind of a stretch for a home occupied operation in an area that one house is ag, one house is rural residential, and then we have commercial. I am willing to give 2 years, but 3 years would be a stretch for me. And the concerns being that there's any issues with traffic, which I hope would be because he has great success, that he does find a commercial venue for something like this, so.
Are you asking for amendment?
No, not at this time yet.
Okay,
I'm waiting for comments.
all right, other discussion?
I would agree with Commissioner Poppins. I guess I was leaning more towards a year. I could probably go to 2, just for the thought process, as he brought up, that, you know, there's gonna be some unforeseeable things come, that you'd hate to just cut him off after 1 year maybe, but I do feel like this is a stretch for home occupancy. The fact that we don't have anything on our books tells us that this isn't anything that's real common. And all the fireworks that, sales that I see are in more of a commercial type setting. And so, I am gonna move, Mr. Chairman, to, strike the 3 years out of the motion and replace it with 2.
All right, so you're amending the motion,
I'm gonna amend it, yeah.
I'll second that amendment.
okay? All right, so this time we have a motion and a second for amendment for a 2-year. Any discussion?
I would say there are some privately owned ones, and they're not in probably Lincoln County. They're down by Beersford, where I think the Knights of Columbus has one. There is a private individual that has one, and they're a lot like what the applicant's describing. They're mostly local people come in and out of there. You're probably not gonna wave a lot of people off the interstate, I guess. I would be in favor of just going with the 3 years, I guess. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of harm in this. There's lots of operations like this across the state that you see. And the state regulates it, and it's 9 days in and out, and it's just part of the 4th of July madness, I think, so.
I can tell you, I drive that road every day. It's difficult even before any additional businesses is coming on and off that road. I'm pretty confident the highway department, when approving that driveway, was for a personal house, not a business type activity, even for just 9 days. There's no harm in limiting it to 2 years. It does not prevent them from coming back. So again, I'll still support moving to a 2-year versus 3-year. But I do appreciate it that there was a limit added to it, so.
My concern's just slightly different than that. I like the sunset clause, that's definitely awesome. I think Kevin, from our dealings with dealing with him and his family, everything in the past, upstanding, good family and all that, and always appreciate someone try to make a couple bucks and expand a future business. So my concern is, in the past, rezoning other properties around there, we've had a lot of questions about traffic, concerns about this and that, and just a lot of concerns about additional growth there. So, and that's coming from everyone in the same neighborhood. So by allowing now a business to start, even though temporary, within the same neighborhood that had the concerns before. You know, I know it's 9 days, but still, there was a lot of concerns brought up in the past. So that's where my my thoughts are going is just the traffic, the people up and down the private roads, that wasn't wanted in previous discussions.
I concur with all that. I like to give an opportunity to an individual from the area to try to make a go of it. I think they can learn a lot in 2 years, and, but same token, you're exactly right. We didn't rezone property in this vicinity because of traffic and things like that. Granted, this is just 9 days, but it just takes one event, to really regret having something, be approved that, maybe had not gone through the scrutiny, that it needed to, so.
All right, so additional conversation, questions? Commissioner Johnson?
No, we got to vote on the amendment, right?
Yep, yep. I just had a deep thought on there, I didn't know.
Nope.
I didn't want to go to a vote if you were still thinking.
So we still on the amendment for the 2-year?
Yep, so we'll vote on the amendment, if that, everyone agrees with that, and then we would vote on
The main motion.
the main motion, which was amended to 2 years rather than 3 years. We're taking 2 votes.
Okay, that's
So
what
we'll-
I'm trying to
yep.
figure out of
Yep.
what.
We'll vote
The
on-
first motion will be is if you change it from the 3 to 2, and if it fails, then it will still be the 3. If it passes, then the main motion then be altered to 2 years.
Yep. So, all right, this is, this to approve the conditional use permit with a 2-year.
No,
No, you just vote on the
we're
amendment.
just, we're just
Vote
voting on the
yes,
amendment.
Yes, all right, okay. So, Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
I'll write this down quick, hold on. Commissioner Green,
No.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
I'm gonna vote on yes also. So it has now been amended, the main motion amended to 2 years. All right, any discussion on, now we're voting on the conditional use permit with a 2-year sunset. Any additional discussion? All right. So a conditional use permit, Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
I'm still gonna vote no, just from the past. So with that, conditional use permit is granted. Correct, congratulations. I hope to see all kinds of cars there, acting neat and orderly and buying all kinds of stuff from you.
Thank you.
So again, I want to go out for the public, conditional use permits can be appealed with a letter to Toby within 5 business days. All right, Mr. Brown.
Okay, this last item, application, the fourth item is the last item, is application for a conditional use permit to transfer 1 building eligibility. Subject, or the property owner of both parcels is John and John Kehoe Senior. This property is located approximately 1.5 miles southeast of the city of Harrisburg. The 2 parcels in consideration, the north parcel is shown here is approximately 76 acres in size. The receiving parcel is approximately 35 acres in size. The receiving parcel doesn't have any structures on it, but there was a building eligibility that was placed, as you can see just to the south here, that does have a single-family dwelling on it. And then there's a parcel directly to the south of that that also does have a single-family dwelling on it. The applicant did submit a site plan with the application, identifies that the track would be identified right here. This is South Dakota Highway 11, which would be just to the west of it. This off to the, what I'll say to the south and to the east, was that building eligibility placement that I talked about before. So this property would be utilizing the same driveway that's been permitted by the state to access onto the property. So staff did review the application with the ordinance and did identify that this application is consistent with the comprehensive plan, primarily because of the conditions that are established within the zoning ordinance as far as requirements or standards that be contiguous and under the same ownership. We did also look at the fact that there is a criteria for what I'll call agricultural productivity of the area. This would take it away from a parcel directly to the north, which is really unencumbered, as my word to say, from having additional residential structures there. Would place it in a location that would not be conflicting with agricultural type production on the property. So staff does identify that, again, this application is consistent with your comprehensive plan, your zoning ordinance, and if approved, would recommend the 5 conditions that were included in the staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for staff at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff?
Can you just give us the rundown, Toby, of the existing housing I guess just give us the countdown, how you came to your number that they still have 1 or 2 or whatever they have.
Just based on the fact that this was a lot of record. And so there is 0 remaining in the parent parcel now. There was, in this property, there was available 2 eligibilities that were placed now. Currently, there would be none left there. And so this would remove that one there. There will be no remaining in the parent, in the sending parcel.
Because, and the 2 to the north were a lot of record?
Correct.
Or both of them were?
Correct.
But then, so was there 2 that came with that parcel when they bought it? What I would call the 80 or whatever.
75, no, there would have
75.
been 1.
There was just 1.
There's 1, yeah. And that'll be moved.
And then do they also own the property to the east, I believe?
Yes, I believe.
So they would have eligibilities there?
I don't know on that one.
Okay.
I don't recall that one, no. The most I do know is, so I believe that they're placing it for a son, would be this one. And then their other son is the one that built with the placement of the eligibility directly adjacent to that one. But beyond that, I don't know, I haven't looked at their ownership or what eligibilities they have left in that area.
And I think you brought it up, but basically all these eligibilities are gonna share the same driveway?
This one and the placement of his brother this other one to the south, they have their own existing driveway going on to the state highway, if I'm correct on that one. And those are.
I
those
don't
have been
know that they
approved.
do have
I'll have to look once if they do or not.
I guess what's your concern, or do you have any concern about, having multiple eligibilities with, just one driveway?
No
No?
concerns, no,
About who owns the driveway or who's responsible for it? I mean,
no.
do we have anything that puts the burden of responsibility on any one of those owners to maintain it, or how does that typically work?
It's a civil matter, usually an easement.
Okay.
Yep.
We're not approving the plat, we're just approving the move of the eligibility, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I don't think, we wouldn't approve the plat. If we transfer it, it's a permitted process, so it wouldn't come back in front
They'd
of us.
have to have that other plat, they'd have to have access somehow, so, but.
Well, that's why I'm curious if, I mean, when it goes through the permitted process, what do you guys think, I mean, what's your requirements, I guess, for access?
That's our requirement, it's in Harrisburg's jurisdiction. So we don't review or approve that plat.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Okay.
It does, and I do apologize, because we didn't plat this or anything, but it does look like that neighbor to the south. This is John Kehoe Jr. would be this property here. This is a separate owner. It does look like they do access that singular driveway that the state permitted, yeah.
I just drove by there yesterday, and that's what it looks like to me.
Both of those structures are large, or small house with big garages, so.
All right, additional questions for staff?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, with that, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and talk about the building eligibility transfer.
Hello, my name is John Kehoe Senior. I live at 3910 Greencastle Avenue Southwest in Oxford, Iowa. But I own these 3 parcels here. This is my younger son, Christopher, and his wife, Amanda. They want to move across from my older son. The 2 boys are going to be farming the 170 acres. We'll split it between them. And we'd like to have them beside each other so the grandkids don't have to drive up and down the road from that north parcel. That's the basic reason for this whole thing. The houses look big because they're houses. They've got a farm shop built into the house, both of them. And that's what Christopher and Amanda plan to build as well. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions for the application? All right, thank you. All right, anybody in favor of the application, please come forward and speak.
Chris Kehoe, 316 East Willow. Sorry, just moved to an apartment. I'm for it. I am currently farming 60 acres for the last year, and then 85 we have with my brother because my dad's stepping out. So currently active than that, it'd be nice to be actually on the property when farming, just because of stuff happening, and just make sure that it's okay. And as my dad mentioned, it'd be nice not to have the grandkids, my kids actually go up Highway 11 to see each other, so. That's all I have.
Amanda Kehoe, 316 East Willow Street. I also came to support this, just pretty much what everyone stated, would like to get out and be on the farm. I grew up on a 10-acre homestead, so would really love to get back out there.
I do have a question. You really want to move that close to your brothers and be that close?
We only live 4 houses apart now, so we're kind of used to it until we moved, yep.
All right, that was my only question. Anybody else? All right, thank you. All right.
Any opposition?
Anybody else in favor of the application? Seeing none, I will ask anybody in opposition of the application. Seeing none, I'll close the floor to public comment and ask for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, motion to approve and second. Any further discussion? So none, I'll do roll call. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensted,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Poppins.
Yes.
And Commissioner Jungling is also a yes. Congratulations, good luck. Houses are awesome too, by the way.
Pretty excited.
We do have yet to talk about discussion on building eligibility transfers.
Deal with the plumbing issue.
Right.
Good luck with that.
Have fun with
Yes.
that.
See you, Mike.
I don't know which way I prefer at this point.
We'll see if John's smiling or not.
All right, Mr. Brown, new business, work session discussing building eligibility transfers. I believe our homework was to bring forward ideas to this meeting. And let's discuss amendments to building transfer eligibility or not. Any changes, amendments, thoughts? I don't know if there's anything for you, Mr. Brown. Feel free.
Yeah, so we talked about it last month. This goes back about 3 months or 3 past meetings. The last 2 meetings, we did open it up for public comment. We did send letters, the first time a little bit late, but the second time 30 days prior to the meeting, to the townships. I think if anything, it's created some good dialogue between staff and the townships. We've really identified that, Lincoln County, we were in the same boat as most of our townships were in about 3 years ago. when prior to adopting the master transportation plan, we didn't have a framework or guidance or standards. And I think our highway department has that now in place. And I think through that discussion, I think you saw part of that dialogue tonight with the rezone application for LG Everest. A lot of that things that we've been talking about kind of came to fruition, and really it was the township taking the lead on that and working with the applicant to make sure that they all had their agreement, I guess, in place prior to. But I guess at this stage, you know, I see issues with transfer eligibility. I see issues with eligibilities. But I don't see the problem yet that we know that if we fix this, it's gonna fix all of it, I guess, in my mind as staff. I think the biggest thing we're seeing is they're being utilized. I don't necessarily know if the transfer is the huge issue, but they're definitely being utilized all over the county. I mean, we've had a great number of placement and building and those different types of things, and good things, but there's growing pains and issues that are there. What I would say to you is that I did request and the budget for the planning and zoning department to update the comprehensive plan. And that discussion starts tomorrow with our board of commissioners for the budget discussion. And I hope that through that process, we can take a larger approach, look at all the issues that we might have out there, and take a look at it. So, you know, other than some guidance from the board, is I don't really have anything to tell you what we're at now. I did find what was interesting is someone mentioned it to me the other day is, you know, we've only had density zoning in Lincoln County since 1995. I mean, it's pretty relatively new, a huge change in 1995, because prior to that, you just had to have an acre and we would come into our office, we'd give you a building permit. And so they asked, well, was there controversy or was there a concern at that time? And when I look back in the minutes, there was really nothing. And partly of that is, did people know, you know, what was going on or not? But it's been fascinating to me to sit through and listen to a lot of the issues coming up about how, you know, we would be taking away something from somebody and those different types of things. And you think back to when it was created and what the issues were. And I think, you know, the other thing I think is staff's doing a good job as far as, I know Commissioner Scott asked it a lot and those different types of things, but we do have a database that we didn't have before that we're tracking these eligibilities. It's at least once a day that somebody's contacting our office to determine if they have a building eligibility, because they are valuable now. I mean, within the last 2 years, they weren't, but so I think we have a database that goes back. It's not just recently, it goes back a number of years. But there is some complexities towards building eligibilities, primarily because of the point of time when we said they could be lots of record. You know, if they were platted before that date, 1995. So I know a lot of people say, well, there's already 3 houses there. How can they have another one left? Well, it's just how the ordinance works and that part of it. So I wish that part was cleaner. It would help with explanation, with people being able to understand it. But it's just where the ordinance is at this time. So, but with that, I guess I don't have any guidance for you at this time. I hope that through the comprehensive plan update process, that some of these issues, that we could find out solutions to some of them and things like that. But that's the best, and I guess I'd like to leave it up to you guys to talk about too.
So at this point, it'd be up to us as a commission to recommend changes or not, and then ask Mr. Brown and staff to formulate them with the big fancy words and lawyer talk to do that. Myself personally, I thought a lot about this, and we've gone through a lot of rezones, or not rezones, moving and all that stuff in the last few months, and I'm actually just fine leaving the way it is. I really super strongly encourage townships to permit it, do an application process or set guidelines for driveways. I think that's seems to be the number one thing we keep coming back with as a townships. As far as transferring eligibilities from township to township, me personally, I don't see that as, I understand the financial impact, but also if you're citizen A living in township A, to go anywhere, you have to drive through township B. So then you're using that road. So if your taxes are in Township A or Township B, you're still using the road. So that's how I see that one. But
So can you, so tomorrow you said that, initiating the process, so has the funding already been secured for whatever this next step is for the comprehensive plan, whether it's to hire somebody to assist in rewriting it, or where do we sit in that process, Toby? I was a little confused by that.
Yeah, so tomorrow is the first agenda for the Board of Commissioners to review our department head submittals as far as the budget request.
Okay.
And so what I
What's that amount?
I budgeted 150,000 this year, so it'll be a 2-year process
Yeah.
though, so it'll be 150 then next year too, so. And I base that on, we're currently working with Sioux Falls and Harrisburg and the county on what I'll call a corridor study of the 9 miles of Highway 106. And that we're budgeting 150,000, so I'm a little low, but I'm being conservative as far as what we can do with it, but based on the things that we've been dealing with over the last, I'll say 6 months and a year and 2 years I think it's critical that we start adopting it or start reviewing it and take a look at it, updating it.
I think based on when it was written last time, the exponential growth that we've had in Lincoln County has been, I don't know, if, it obviously wasn't forecasted at this level. So to be able to, go back and look at the plan to make sure it's still conducive of the growth that we're seeing, I think is important. Tonight, this last one that we saw with the density zoning, putting the housing eligibilities all together in that one spot, to me, I think that's what we look for, specifically even right on, Highway 11 on a state oil road, right? So I don't know if us as this board, if we make the recommendation, if our recommendation is to support Toby, to go forward with supporting Toby and, with his budget request to be able to look at the comprehensive plan over the next 2 years. I'm definitely in support of that. And I think it is in support of, the great work that staff is currently doing, so.
Yeah.
But I think too, like getting those townships involved, that should be part of, transferring these building eligibilities, but when it comes time to build that's part of the application package that they have to provide that, or they already have to provide that saying, hey, here's approval from the township before
So-
we even think about the subdevelopment plan.
So I don't know if this will answer, but so I've got 3 thoughts on this since we've been talking about it, and one of them is the township. And as we've continued to have discussion, what I guess what I've heard is that it's so different from one end of the county to the other, from one township to the other, that I don't know that on the county level that we can just say, well, let's do this and that'll fix everything, or let's do this, this, and this, and that'll fix everything. But what we have found out is, as we've had this dialogue, is that the township has a lot more levers than they're using right now. And if they want to, and I know our township is gonna implement a driveway permitting process, and we're actually even gonna look at limiting, potentially limiting the amount of residential driveways in a mile and some things like that. And so they have that. And then what we want to do is, once we get that in place, I think if we present that material to Toby's office and say, okay, if somebody wants to build comes in and applies for a building eligibility in Highland Township, and Toby knows that these are the requirements that we're going to ask, he can hopefully pass that information on to him, even though it's maybe not a requirement of his building permit. But I think if he just says, well, this is who you got to talk to and this is what you got to do before you guys go about this.
Is
Because
that something that he could include in his comprehensive plan to be able to, whoever they hire as a consultant to, do some work with these townships to kind of get common understanding of, hey, here's what the permitting process looks like, here's kind of what it should be.
Well, and there again, I think that's where the separation between county and townships are, and I think the townships have to take that upon themselves, depending upon how important they feel about it, or how much it influences their townships, right?
But I'm just saying, if they could, give some of that funding, so the township does come and say, hey, we want to do a study to figure out how many of these per mile we can have, then Toby would have some money available to say, hey, here's, we're doing a comprehensive plan anyways, here's some money to help.
Would be interesting to have that part of it. I mean, because we've thrown out some even though it doesn't, we've thrown out some interesting scenarios where you could have 30 driveways on a half a mile of township road and, but is that for the county to decide or is that for the road authority? And the road authority is the township and this, the Supreme Court has backed that many a times that they're the road authority and what they think is right. And that could be different. I've talked to the township supervisors in the Valley Township and their idea of traffic is way different than ours is in Highland Township, so, and they've got this new process now where they're gonna start doing what they're talking about. LG Everest was talking about redoing these roads and I've talked to some of the county highway guys and they say, once you spend that money, it's done, so that changes things too now, if you've got a lot of traffic, a lot of driveways and you're willing to, so I guess my point is, I think that at least my opinion, as being both a township supervisor and on this board is that, I think the more local we handle it, is probably gonna be the best. At least it is in our township, and I think that we're just gonna handle it on a local basis. And then that leaves the freedom for everybody else in the county to do it how they want. That's my thought on that. The comprehensive plan, we 1,000% need to do something there. I've been frustrated as a planning commission member is we've been using that as a guide because that's our only guide on how to approve things. And the county board of commissioners has decided that, as I've watched their meetings, they've decided the comprehensive plan in a lot of cases is outdated and so they just kind of doing their own thing with, this is my own opinion, without very much structure or consistency. And so I think just the fact that we get an updated comprehensive plan that everybody can use as a guide would make our jobs a lot easier because we're sitting here as a planning commission and we're using that as a guide and we're making decisions on that. And that's getting appealed and going to the county commission and then they're setting precedents for us that, well, that really doesn't matter. Well, I'm confused about it as a planning commission member and I would like to see the updated plan that everybody's like, okay, this is the current plan, let's follow it, right? And as far as the eligibility thing goes in our comprehensive plan, and we had Daisy from Turner County, she confirmed it, that our comprehensive plan, when it comes to transfer of housing eligibilities and density in the country, actually says two things that are polar opposite. If you read it, it says that it's good to do it, but yet it's not. And so I think just from the eligibility standpoint, I think we could clear that up a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess those are kind of my thoughts on it. And again, I've been pretty boisterous about wanting to, how this looks, and I do think it's something that I'd be interested to see what a comprehensive plan with the growth that we're having at the pace that we're having, what different it's gonna say, I guess, than the one that we have right now. And so I would 100% support you, Toby, and your office and your staff, and I would encourage the county commissioners, if they're listening, to approve the funding, because I think it's something that we need as a county to go forward with is an updated comprehensive plan.
I 1,000% agree with all that, the guidance of updated plan would help us a lot. Right now, our goal is to grow cities outward, not create separate islands all over the county. Mm-hmm. And this comprehensive plan will definitely help that.
I think, yeah, I don't, one is, I guess, the vision I have with doing a consultant is it's kind of like a kid at the state fair with a balloon, is just let it go. I mean, we just, I don't want to micromanage. I think this needs to be a bottom-up plan. And I think that's part of the problem with the current plan is it's not, it was a top-down plan. And I think that the other part about it is that I tend to think is going through with a consultant, part of it is it's a lot educational too. People get tired of me saying the same thing over and over again, but an outside consultant telling us it's like, hey, if we keep developing this way, this is the consequences, is what's going to happen down the road. And part of the consequence is what it's already stated in the current comprehensive plan is that we don't want to put an undue burden on our agricultural community. with growth and with development and those types of things. And so that's kind of some of those things. So I'm excited. I think the board's supportive of it too. Of course, funding is a huge issue in Lincoln County as far as available funds and needs that the county has. So I don't want it to see that the board's not looking at, if whatever the board decides to do, it's not that they don't see the importance of it. It's just they have to balance the needs of funding for the entire county. And there's many things that are issues in Lincoln County currently now, but I think they recognize as well too that it needs to be updated. So.
And hopefully, and even if they don't approve, approve that, I would encourage them, and I wish Commissioner Poppins was still here so he could take the message to them. But I would encourage them to find some kind of guideline that they can go with on these issues, because currently it doesn't appear to me that there's consistency. And so I would like to see some consistency and some guidelines. And then, when we had our group meeting, we had this whole discussion. We had the opportunity to have it, and I was disappointed that there was very little dialogue, and we weren't given a lot of guidance on what they would like to see too. And I realize we're on our own board, but I think in conjunction, I think it'd be nice if we had a point, if we had a beacon that we were all pointing towards, and everybody's, we're going towards the same direction, because it just, to me, doesn't feel that way right now.
And I think we have created our own direction as a planning board. I mean, when I first started on this board, I don't know how many, it wasn't that long ago, I don't think, but it was inconsistent. And now we've slowly grown into consistently, saying no to bigger developments. Kind of forgetting about precedents, because what happened in the past, different
Right.
boards, different people. What we gotta look forward to is going in the future. So, yeah,
Yep.
I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
Yeah.
Housing eligibilities though, do we wanna just kinda see where the comprehensive?
I guess my personal opinion would be is I think it would be premature to do anything until we see what a new comprehensive plan would look like.
Yep.
And in the meantime, I think that the townships can take care of some of the issues that we have discussed over the past two public hearings. I think that if the townships want to, they have the levers to be able to take care of some of that stuff on their own currently.
And I think internally, I think we're holding tight more to that we need some type of a written or verbal or from the townships. And that kind of was, wasn't consistent with that part of it. But, and hopefully the townships know too, is that, some of this, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I mean, as far as development, and there isn't a lot of lead time given to us. A lot of, people coming in and they've already bought land and they've already built architectural plans and they're ready to go, and we're like, well, but there's process and stuff that needs to go through with that. But it's a different place right now as far as that stuff. There's stuff happening, even before they consult with us. I mean, we've had more this year than I've seen in the past, where people just started building before we've had any approval or anything. So I mean, there's things out there that we're going through that we need to work through. So, but I concur with what Commissioner Scott said on just wait till we get the comprehensive plan updated.
All right, any other discussion, commissioners, or Toby, anything to add?
No, I did put a second item on the agenda as far as just updates, and I think Commissioner Scott alluded to some of that, is that prior to or in between your last meeting and this meeting, there was 3 items that the Board of Commissioners did take up in consideration. The first was the rezone of the Meadows development, which is a housing development, approximately 30 lots. This would just be to the east, or to the west, sorry, of Spring Creek Golf Course. And so the Planning Commission did recommend denial of that application, but that application for rezone to rural residential was approved by the Board of Commissioners. And then also at that same meeting, they did approve the subdivision plan for that development. And so there is some discussion that I'm having with the state's attorney's office about how we're going to proceed with, if you recall, this board did deny that preliminary subdivision plan. So I'm in discussion with them about process that we'll go through with that. And so just figure out how we're gonna proceed with that. And I'll keep you informed of that, but I don't have a direct answer on how we're gonna do that.
In general, that subdivision plan should come through us first. Is that correct, if I remember it, right?
It does, but it's, the subdivision ordinance is conflicting language. It does have your signature block on the preliminary subdivision plan, but then in the text part of it, it says that yours is a recommendation given to the Board of Commissioners. So we just want to make sure that we follow those steps procedurally correct. Because if you're aware is that the preliminary plan is approved by, essentially approved or recommended by the Planning Commission, approved by the Board of Commissioners, but that's just essentially conceptual lot and block layout. The final grading, the final drainage, the final, what I'll call the construction plans part of it, that's internal by me, just by staff. And so there is quite a bit of concern of the neighbors in that area about drainage and about access and about roads, connections and things like that we need to go through. The homeowners group in this development also, the Board of Commissioners approved at their last meeting a vacation of this connection to Meadowlark Street as well. So that they vacated a portion to it, so there's still some discussion about connectivity and things like that through that development, so we'll get to that part. Also at that same meeting, the board they had tabled, but they took up for consideration the appeal of your approval of the Primo feedlot, which is just to the south on Highway 11. And so if you recall, goes back a couple of years, but they were limited to 1,000 head on the property. They came back before you to request an amendment to that to go to 2,000 head. The Planning Commission did approve that. It was appealed to the Board of Commissioners, and the Board of Commissioners upheld that decision. They did, I believe, upheld it and amended a condition on it. But I think it was 2 conditions that they amended onto it, and so, but that was upheld and some, so. But those were those were the 3 main actions that were done before then in the previous meeting, so. One other thing that I wanted to kind of talk to you about, beyond that, if there's any questions on that stuff, I'll certainly entertain that. But the other thing that I wanted to point out to you is, if you've noticed, I've been referencing in the staff report some different chapter numbers and section numbers for the ordinances. It doesn't exactly coincide with what we gave you in the binder. And so this was a major project that the county undertook, was to codify all of the county ordinances. And so, and I'm going to show you where that's at here once, but so the auditor's office really took the lead on this, but essentially they took all of their ordinances that have been adopted by the Board of Commissioners, and this is just on the county website. And so American Legal Publishing, they're a pretty well-known company. They've codified the city of Sioux Falls and different organizations like that. But this is essentially all of the ordinances that have been adopted by the county, essentially. And so all of our ordinances are land usage. And there was an issue with, they didn't have all of the joint zoning ordinances codified in here, so I didn't really go through this process with you guys yet. But we're still trying to figure out internally how we're gonna give you this, because it's a printout and things like that, or if you just reference it on here. But so this is a codification of all the current ordinances. And so the previous version that we gave you is a codification of it, but that's internal codification. This will be the official codification of the ordinances. So we'll always reference it as the Lincoln County Code of Ordinances. And we'll reference, it's the chapter 154 zoning, chapter 155 is the joint zoning. And then everything underneath it that used to be chapters is really kind of sections now. But they didn't change anything, they just took what was currently adopted by the county and just put it into this codification format. So this will be what we're referencing from here on out. And just for reference, if you want to look through it, the planning and zoning statute is the majority of the ordinances that have been adopted by the county. There's really nothing much else as far as general standards or ordinances that are a part of it, so. And then one other quick thing, I guess. So that's that, and we'll kind of go through that in the future and that, but the parcel browser has also been updated. And so that's our GIS administrator that administers the parcel browser map. So if you look at some of the layers and things like that, they've simplified it as far as flood areas and planting areas and things like that. And then we've also, the county got completely reflown on, I believe it was April of this year. So the current aerial that you're looking at is a few months old. And so we typically do new flies every 2 years in the county, but this essentially is within the last few months, so. With that, that's really all I had. I guess if you have any other questions for staff at this time, I could certainly.
All I gotta say is that's awesome, Toby. Those updates, even the ordinances together, it's not fun, it's not flashy, but it's needed. And I know it's a lot of work, and that's awesome for you and staff. I appreciate everybody.
Yeah, and I appreciate the auditor's office taking the lead on, and the commissioners. It was an investment in the county, but you know, when I first started here, I was concerned that how does anyone know what the rules are? I mean, there's really no. If anyone remembers, we had an ordinance page that just had lists of ordinances, but this is a full codification of all of the ordinances in the county. So it helps us in referencing people when they have questions too, and you can just hyperlink to everything, and it's more but I'd say it's more user-friendly than I think we've had anything in the past. But so it was a team effort, and I think it's a good thing. And it's sometimes those little things get overlooked, but that's a big thing in my mind for the citizens of the county. So, but with that, I think that's the last item on the agenda. Otherwise, we do have 3 applications for next month. We won't have a joint. I don't believe we have any joint applications at that time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all I want to say for the record, since it's being recorded, so any rezones can appeal to the Board of Commissioners. I'm trying to say that after every one, but sometimes I forget, so. And then, conditional use can be repealed also. So if you have any issues, just call Toby if you want to ask questions, let us know.
Yeah, the only thing I clarify there is the rezones isn't an appeal, it's just a recommendation from your board.
Right, yeah.
So it's just the commissioners just take your recommendation and their advice or guidance.
Or don't.
Well, I think they do. I mean, I think they do. It's challenging, you know, and things like that. But there's a lot of, you know, it's a lot of issues, and there's a lot of concerns and a lot of things. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so yeah.
Motion to adjourn?
No, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, everybody.